Let me ask you something real quick. Have you ever had that gut feeling, that little whisper inside you, that someone is into you, like really into you, but for some reason they're acting like they couldn't care less? You know what I'm talking about. They're around, they're present, they're watching, but they never say anything directly. One moment they're hot, the next they're cold. They remember every little thing you said 2 months ago, but when you call them out, they play it off like it's no big deal. They act nonchalant, like you're just a casual friend, just another person passing by. But deep down, your instincts are screaming at you. Something is going on here. Listen, you're not crazy. You're tuned in. And today, we're going to rip the mask off that behavior and talk about something real: obsession. Not the healthy, mutual kind that grows and gets talked about openly. No, I'm talking about the silent, hidden, burning under the surface kind of obsession. The kind someone tries to bury, but it keeps surfacing in how they act, what they don't say, and how they react to you. This kind of obsession is like a fire behind frosted glass. You can't see the flames, but you feel the heat. You sense it. It's in the way they linger just a little too long, how they light up when you walk in, how they get defensive when you talk about someone else. It's in the way they study you. Yes, study, but pretend they're not paying attention. Now, let me tell you something important right up front. How someone behaves when they're hiding their obsession with you says more about them than it does about you. Some people don't know how to process big emotions. Some people are afraid of being vulnerable. Some people, honestly, are afraid of how much they want you, admire you, or feel drawn to you, so they pull back to stay in control. And let's be real, obsession doesn't always show up as romantic interest. Sometimes it's admiration, sometimes it's envy, sometimes it's competition dressed up as detachment. But make no mistake, if someone's thoughts are consumed by you, if their attention keeps snapping back to you, if their energy shifts every time you're around, that's obsession, whether they admit it or not. So many of us waste time second-guessing ourselves. We talk ourselves out of what we know is true because the other person is acting cool, casual, or even dismissive. But the truth is, energy doesn't lie, behavior doesn't lie, patterns don't lie. And if you're feeling confused, unsure, or even a little bit emotionally whiplashed from how someone keeps showing up in your life, this speech is for you, because we're going to break it all the way down. The 5 clear, undeniable signs that someone is obsessed with you but trying to hide it. And I want you to listen carefully, not just for curiosity's sake, but for your own clarity. Because once you understand what obsession in disguise looks like, you stop wasting energy chasing people who already see you, who already want you, but are too afraid to show up with honesty. This isn't about calling people out. This is about calling out the truth so you can stand in your power, trust your intuition, and stop questioning what you already know in your gut. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to walk you through these 5 signs, and I want you to think. I want you to remember moments. Look at the people in your life, friends, coworkers, exes, even that one person who's just a friend. Because chances are, if you've ever felt that intense, unspoken energy from someone, these signs are going to bring it to light. By the end of this talk, you won't be wondering, do they care? You'll know. You'll see the signals for what they are, and you'll finally have the permission to believe what your intuition's been trying to tell you all along. So buckle up. This is going to be real, raw, and eye-opening. Because the people who pretend they don't care, they usually care the most. Let's get into it. Here are the 5 signs they're obsessed but hiding it. You want to know one of the clearest, most underestimated signs that someone is obsessed but trying to hide it? They start to mirror you. Now, this isn't something loud or obvious. They're not copying you like a fan or parroting your every move like a cartoon character. No, this is subtle. It's psychological. It's primal. It's automatic. When someone is drawn to you, when their mind is fixated on you, when they can't stop thinking about you, they unconsciously start to reflect your behaviors, your patterns, your energy. It starts small. You mention that you're getting into meditation. Suddenly, they're asking you which app you use. You talk about this book that changed your mindset, and boom, a week later, they're coincidentally reading the same one. You wear a certain color a lot. Next thing you know, so are they. You start using a specific phrase, or maybe you have a certain tone when you talk, and slowly they start picking it up too. That's not coincidence. That's not admiration. That's subconscious obsession. That is someone being so tuned into you that their brain starts syncing up with yours. Why? Because people mirror what they admire. They mirror what they want to feel close to. They mirror what they can't stop thinking about. Let me give you a truth bomb. Mirroring is the body's way of saying, I want to connect with you without exposing myself. This is science. It's rooted in something called mirror neurons. These are the neurons in your brain that activate when you watch someone else do something. It's the reason we cry in movies. It's the reason we wince when someone stubs their toe. And when someone is emotionally or psychologically drawn to you, these neurons start firing like crazy. But here's where it gets fascinating. When someone is obsessed with you but hiding it, they don't even realize they're doing this. That's what makes it so real. It's not calculated. It's instinctive. It's not them trying to fake interest. It's their entire nervous system responding to you like a magnet. They want to feel like you. They want to think like you. They want to live in the same mental space as you, and mirroring gives them a way to do that without ever saying a word. And what makes this even more powerful is that this kind of obsession isn't about attention. It's about absorption. They're absorbing your identity, taking little pieces of your vibe and making it part of their world. And they'll try to play it off, like they were already into that, or just happened to get into the same thing. But the truth? You inspired that. You ignited something in them. And they don't know how to explain it, so they mirror it instead. Now, here's the tricky part. This can be so subtle that if you're not paying attention, you'll miss it. But once you know what to look for, you'll never unsee it. Suddenly, that friend who accidentally adopted your exact schedule, the colleague who started using your same expressions, the person who listens to the same songs you posted last week but says nothing, it'll all click. You'll realize they're not just interested. They're drawn to you, deeply, and maybe even a little scared of how much. Because obsession isn't always loud. It doesn't always knock on your door and announce itself. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it mimics. And when it does, it shows up in patterns. Your patterns mirrored back at you like a reflection. So the next time someone seems to be walking a little too closely in your footsteps, talking a little too much like you, or suddenly shifting into habits you've been living in for months, don't brush it off. Don't ignore it. That's not chance. That's a signal. And you get to decide what to do with that signal. Because once you recognize mirroring, you recognize obsession. And once you recognize obsession, you hold the power, not them. Now listen closely, because this one is huge. When someone is obsessed with you, but hiding it, truly hiding it, they become a silent observer in your life. They don't show up in obvious ways. They're not blowing up your phone. They're not flooding your notifications with likes or hearts or flame emojis, but they're always there. They're watching, always watching. This is the person who views every Instagram story but never reacts. They scroll through your feed and study your captions. They know when you've changed your profile picture. They know who you've been with based on a background in a photo. They see it all. They pay attention to the details, but they do it quietly, secretly. Why? Because they care too much. And they're terrified you'll see it. They're afraid to look exposed, vulnerable. So instead, they become the digital ghost in your world, always present but never announced. Let me be really clear. That kind of consistent, silent attention, that's not indifference, that's not casual, that's obsession in disguise. They may not double tap, but they're tapping in, they're investing energy in you every single day without your permission. And that's not nothing, that's a lot, because energy is everything. Where people put their focus, that's where their desire lives. That's where their truth hides. And if someone's hiding behind silence but showing up in every view, every space, every moment of your online life. They're not over you. They're not indifferent. They're watching you like it's their job. Now let's zoom out. This doesn't just apply to social media. In the real world, this looks like them being in the same room, the same party, the same event, and their eyes keep drifting to you. You're talking to someone else? They notice. You laugh a little too hard at someone else's joke. Their whole vibe changes. You feel their eyes on you before you even see them. That's real. That's energy. That's emotional gravity. And sometimes it's not even visual, it's in their knowledge of you. You mentioned something months ago in passing, and they bring it up randomly like they never forgot. You're shocked they remembered. But you shouldn't be, because people remember what they're obsessed with. People retain details about what they can't let go of, even if they pretend to be casual. This kind of obsession is quiet. It doesn't scream, it lingers. And the reason it feels so confusing is because it's wrapped in denial. They don't want to admit how much they care, so they shrink into the shadows. But make no mistake, obsession doesn't need a spotlight. It thrives in the dark, it grows in silence, and you can feel it even when no one says a word. Let's be real, we live in a world where watching someone is easy. You don't need to say anything, you just scroll, tap, lurk. You can follow someone's entire journey without ever interacting. But when someone chooses to do that consistently, to follow, to watch, to absorb everything you put out into the world, all while staying silent, that's not passive. That's not boredom. That's obsession wrapped in fear. And here's the key. Fear is often what holds people back from expressing obsession openly. Fear of rejection, fear of being seen, fear of being too much. So instead of showing you their feelings, they hide behind a screen. They hide behind a smirk. They hide behind emotional distance. But your intuition knows. You feel it when they're near. You feel the tension when they walk past. You feel the shift when they're online. That's not fantasy. That's not insecurity. That's your body picking up on their unspoken energy. So don't second guess it. Don't ignore the patterns. If someone is consistently in your digital and emotional space without engaging directly, they are not neutral. They are not casual. They are hiding something real. And the moment you realize that silence can be louder than words, you stop chasing noise and you start paying attention to energy. Because silence? That's the obsession's favorite hiding place. Here's a truth no one likes to admit. Jealousy doesn't come from indifference. It comes from desire. When someone is obsessed with you but hiding it, their jealousy doesn't show up like fireworks. It doesn't come screaming, "I'm in love with you," or "I want you all to myself." It shows up quietly, awkwardly, and sometimes passive-aggressively. It slips into conversations like venom laced in honey. It hides behind sarcasm, behind subtle digs, behind questions that sound innocent, but aren't. Let me paint a picture for you. You mentioned grabbing lunch with a coworker. Boom, their tone changes. They play it off like it's no big deal, but you feel the shift. You say you're going out this weekend, and suddenly they're making jokes like, "Well, must be nice," or "Guess I'm not that important." Sound familiar? That's not coincidence. That's not teasing. That's jealousy trying to wear a disguise. And what's important to understand is this. It's not about what you're doing. It's about what they're not doing. See, when someone is obsessed but too afraid to admit it, they feel powerless. You're out there living your life. You're connecting, moving, growing, and they're watching it happen. They're not included. They're not chosen. And that hurts them more than they'll ever tell you. So what do? They lash out, just a little. They ask you about the people you're hanging out with, but not because they're happy for you. They do it because they're checking for competition. They ask questions that seem innocent on the surface. "Oh, who were you with? You guys talk a lot, huh? Are you two like a thing?" And when you tell them it's nothing, they nod, they smile. But inside, they're spiraling. Because obsession doesn't want to share. It doesn't want to compete. Even if they'll never admit they want you, it kills them to think someone else might have you. You want to know how real this gets? Pay attention to their body language, their eyes, their tone, their micro reactions. When you talk about another person, even casually, Do they suddenly withdraw? Do they get colder? Do they try to change the subject? Or do they go the other way and overcompensate, acting extra happy for you in a way that feels fake? That's not support. That's a smokescreen. And sometimes jealousy doesn't even involve other people. It's about your wins. When someone's obsessed with you but hiding it, they want to be your source of joy. They want to be the one who understands you best. So when you light up about something that doesn't involve them, a goal, a breakthrough, a success, they might feel left out, not needed, or insecure. And what do? They downplay your excitement. They don't celebrate it with you, or worse, they subtly compete with it. Sound familiar? This is what obsession in disguise does. It breeds insecurity, and insecurity breeds jealousy. And jealousy, especially the small, sneaky kind, is a signal that they feel deeply connected to you but have no idea how to handle it. Because here's the raw truth. We don't get jealous over things we don't care about. You don't care who your neighbor hangs out with. You don't care if someone you barely know gets a promotion. But the moment it's someone you care about, someone you're emotionally tied to, even if you've never said it out loud, suddenly everything matters. Suddenly, lunch with a friend feels like betrayal. Suddenly, a compliment from someone else feels like competition. Suddenly, your freedom feels like distance they can't bridge. That's obsession. And it's boiling underneath a surface of silence. Now listen, this doesn't mean you owe them anything. Just because someone is jealous doesn't mean they're entitled to your time or attention. What this does mean is that when you notice someone getting triggered by small, meaningless things, it's time to stop ignoring the truth. They're not just overthinking. They're not just being dramatic. They're not just joking around. They care, they want you. And they're trying to mask it with sarcasm, with withdrawal, with strange comments that make you second-guess yourself. But you're not crazy. You're picking up on energy that's very real. So the next time someone reacts just a little too strongly to a small detail in your life, remember, obsession isn't always loud. Sometimes it sounds like a joke. Sometimes it looks like a mood shift. Sometimes it hides behind silence that feels heavy. And jealousy? That's obsession's nervous cousin. It shows up when desire meets fear. You ever notice when someone tries way too hard to act like they don't care? Like they're emotionally detached, unaffected, living their best life, but something about it feels off? That's not detachment. That's performance. That's someone putting on a mask because deep down, they are anything but unbothered. When someone is obsessed with you but hiding it, they build this entire image around indifference. They'll act like they're not watching, like your life, your moves, your energy, none of it touches them. But it's all an act, and the cracks in that act always show. They'll go out of their way to seem chill, to act like you're just another person in the room. You post something powerful, they pretend not to see it. You show up looking incredible, they avoid eye contact, but their energy tells the truth. Their reactions, their timing, the tension in their voice, the way their entire demeanor shifts when you walk in. That's the real story. You can feel when someone is trying too hard to seem cool, to seem disinterested. And you know why they're doing it? Because they're scared. They're afraid that if they show how much they care, you'll pull away. They think hiding their feelings gives them control. But the more they suppress, the more it leaks out in those unexpected, unguarded moments. Here's where it gets interesting. Their slip-ups are never loud, they're subtle, and that's what makes them so revealing. Maybe they respond a little too quickly when you finally text them. Maybe they ask about something you posted days ago, pretending like it just came up. Maybe they reference something you said weeks ago, something you forgot, but they didn't. Maybe they roll their eyes when someone flirts with you, then laugh like it's no big deal, but it is a big deal. Their obsession slips out through the cracks in their I don't care routine. Because let's be honest, if you truly didn't care, you wouldn't be trying so hard to prove it. What people don't realize is that pretending not to care takes more energy than just being real. Indifference is effortless. But what these people do, that's exhausting. It's emotional gymnastics. And you know the wildest part? They're not doing it for you. They're doing it for themselves, to convince themselves that they're still in control. But the truth is, the moment you feel the need to act unbothered, you're already bothered. The moment you go out of your way to be emotionally neutral, you're already emotionally invested. And that's obsession talking, masked as distance, filtered through fear. It's like emotional theater. They're on stage, playing a role, and hoping you won't notice the tension behind the smile. But you do. You always do. Because we feel energy. We feel hesitation. We feel when someone's coolness is just a shield. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Every moment of forced calm, every no big deal reaction, every effort to seem like you're irrelevant, it all reads like a flashing sign that says, I'm affected. I care. I just don't know how to admit it. So if someone in your life is trying too hard to be indifferent, watch what they do when they forget to perform. Watch their body language. Watch their tone. Watch what happens when they think you're not watching. Because obsession doesn't always shout. Sometimes it slips out in quiet contradictions, in the tension between what they say and what they can't hide. That's when you know. They're not just thinking about you, they're tangled up in you, and their silence, their distance, their cool exterior. That's just the armor. But the obsession is burning underneath it all. Here's the thing. When someone is obsessed with you but trying to hide it, they don't disappear. They infiltrate. And they do it in a way that feels subtle, almost too subtle. You won't see them showing up with grand romantic gestures or making dramatic declarations. No, that would expose them. Instead, they insert themselves into your life through little coincidences. Small, perfectly timed moments that look like fate but are actually calculated. You bump into them at the same coffee shop twice in 1 week. They suddenly start liking the same hobbies, the same podcasts, the same gym classes. They show up at events you casually mentioned once in a group setting, and they always say the same thing when you call it out. Oh wow, what a coincidence. But let's be honest, how many coincidences before it becomes a pattern? People don't just appear in your world over and over again without intention. This isn't the universe. This is strategy. This is emotional proximity disguised as chance. When someone is obsessed but hiding it, they're constantly looking for ways to stay close to you without appearing needy. So they construct these accidental overlaps that keep them relevant, that keep them in your periphery, that give them a reason to talk to you, be around you, or even just be noticed by you, without ever having to admit they want that attention in the first place. What makes this so powerful is that it's rooted in fear and longing at the same time. Fear of rejection, fear of exposure, but also a desperate need to feel close to you. So instead of reaching out directly, they engineer ways to orbit your world. And they do it so well that sometimes, even you start questioning whether it's real. You think, maybe we just keep running into each other, or maybe we just have the same interests. But deep down, something feels off. Something feels too aligned. That's your intuition. That's your gut noticing the game they're playing. Because obsession always needs access. It needs to feel connected, even if from a distance. And when direct access is too risky, people start creating scenarios that give them emotional nearness without vulnerability. And let's talk about timing, because that's one of the biggest giveaways. Ever notice how these people show up right when you're leveling up? Right when something big is happening in your life? Right after a breakup, a promotion, a glow up, a major shift? That's not a coincidence. That's an emotional radar going off. People who are secretly obsessed are tuned in to your moves, even when they pretend they're not. They hear through mutual friends, see things online, feel your energy shift. And then they appear, casually, conveniently, like they just happened to be in the neighborhood. Let's be real. If you've ever had someone reappear in your life at exactly the right time, with exactly the right excuse, but with absolutely no explanation for where they've been emotionally all this time, you're not imagining it. They've been lurking in the background, waiting for a moment that feels safe. And when that moment comes, they make their move. Not a bold move, not a vulnerable move, a convenient one, one that lets them test the waters without risking exposure. And that's obsession in camouflage. They don't want to lose you. They don't want to feel irrelevant. But they also don't want to admit how much they're still emotionally tied to you. So they stay close enough to feel connected, but far enough to claim detachment. And that middle space, that emotional limbo, is where obsession thrives. It feeds on just enough interaction to stay alive, while avoiding the honesty that would force it out into the light. So pay attention. If someone keeps accidentally inserting themselves into your life, showing up in your world in ways that feel just a little too well timed, a little too rehearsed, it's not random. It's obsession in action, quiet, calculated, and 100% intentional. They might not be ready to admit how they feel, but their patterns are screaming what their words never will. I can't stay away from you, even if I pretend I can. So let's bring this home. Obsession, real, raw obsession. It's not always loud. It's not always obvious. Sometimes it doesn't look like passion. It looks like withdrawal. It looks like sarcasm. It looks like someone who says, I'm fine, when they're anything but. It looks like someone who shows up in your world just enough to stay relevant, but never enough to be honest. And that's what makes it so confusing, because we're taught to look for love in grand gestures, in bold words, in loud commitment. But obsession? Obsession doesn't always knock on your door. Sometimes it watches from the window, quiet, focused, constant. You've seen the signs now, the delayed reactions that reveal they're always watching, the jealousy over things that shouldn't matter, but clearly do, the I don't care attitude that cracks the second you move on, the convenient, well-timed appearances that feel too perfect to be coincidence. And the truth is, all of these signs are saying one thing: this person is emotionally tied to you in ways they're not brave enough to admit. And maybe that's flattering. Maybe it's confusing. Maybe it breaks your heart. But here's the wake-up call. You are not here to wait on someone else's unspoken feelings. You are not here to shrink, to wonder, to decode mixed signals and settle for silent longing. You deserve clarity. You deserve action. You deserve truth. Not emotional games, not quiet jealousy, not strategic coincidences. You deserve someone who meets you with the same energy you bring to the table, who shows up not when it's convenient, but because they choose you, boldly, openly, unapologetically. So if someone is hiding behind distance, silence, or vague interactions, you don't chase that. You don't shrink yourself to fit inside someone else's denial. What you do is pay attention, because their behavior is telling you everything you need to know. Their obsession may be real, but obsession without courage is just noise. It's not love. It's not commitment. It's fear in disguise. And let me say this loud and clear. You are not responsible for someone else's emotional maturity. You are not here to pull truth out of someone who refuses to give it. If they're watching from the shadows, if they're drowning in jealousy, if they're pretending not to care, that's their battle to face, not yours. You've got a life to live. You've got people to meet, goals to chase, a future to build. So take this message as a reminder. You don't need to chase obsession. You attract what you're ready for. And when you stand fully in your truth, when you live boldly, when you stop feeding into half-efforts and emotional breadcrumbs, you create space for someone who isn't afraid to choose you out loud. Because real love, it doesn't hide. It doesn't play games. And it sure as hell doesn't whisper in silence what it's too scared to say out loud. So walk forward with your eyes open, your head high, and your heart guarded with wisdom. Let them keep watching. Let them feel the weight of what they didn't have the guts to pursue. And you? You go where the energy is clear, consistent, and honest. That's not just how you protect your peace. That's how you own your power.